Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, this is David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Jess Tyler, Chief Revenue Officer with MJBiz. Thank you very much for joining me today, Jess.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Jess, I always like to start with a bit of background. How did you get involved in the cannabis show business?
Man, that's a great question. I think, everybody has their story of, how they migrated from other industries and into this space. I definitely do. I've been in media and events my whole career. And then in 2018, after knowing the founders of MJBiz for a while, I made the jump over and never looked back.
So how are cannabis events different from other industry events?
I think definitely the people in this industry, they're so resilient, they're risk takers. I think, just to work in cannabis alone, it's such an inspiring community because of where we are in the US with legalization and trying to really develop a new business model that doesn't currently, it does exist, but on a federal level. So for me, the biggest difference is in the people. And it's seeing how everyone comes together in Vegas to try to advance the industry and really see where it can go, and the passion. It's just phenomenal.
That's one thing that I noticed too, ever since I started going to the show in Vegas, was the camaraderie and the true kind of sense of community. Whereas, it's just people shuffling down aisles in other industries, or at least that's how it seemed to me.
Absolutely. I think it's more than just a business here. And at MJBiz, we try and think of it that way. Our primary goal is helping cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs be more successful. So that's in what we do with MJBiz Daily and the magazine, and what we're planning for the event this year. We always bring it back to that core of how can we help people advance their businesses in this space. And what I really love about that is that community, that when you're at the event, for example, as you said, you're walking down the aisles and you're seeing everyone, and it's people that you've been working with for a while, or you could have that serendipitous connection that you're standing in line at Starbucks and, meet the next person that you're going to partner with. It's just the magic of it, that secret sauce, I guess. It's just really special.
What are your expectations for the show this year?
I think cannabis has had a really tough year, right? Anyone who's in it, this is not for the faint of heart to be in this space right now, but I salute everybody who's pushing through. So for this year, we focused a lot on really the individual stories. Our campaign is Dare to Grow this year, and that came out of a discussion where we were talking a lot about who are the people that are keeping this industry going and bringing it forward. And we really, especially in our content this year, we're highlighting a lot of those individual stories. Whereas, in another year, maybe we were looking from outside the industry to say, what could cannabis learn from other growing industries like tech or, the beverage industry? This year, we're really looking internally, because I think it's one of those years of get back to basics. Let's focus on solidifying our businesses to take us into next year. So I'm excited that MJBiz is at the end of 23, because it is going to set us up for 24. And hopefully we'll see some variations of reform in the next year that are really, going to set us back on that growth trajectory.
That is one thing that I've noticed, is that while it is an industry of resilient risk takers, that this seems to be the most recent year seems to have been one of the hardest on record of late. If anything has changed this year as a result of feedback from exhibitors and attendees from last year's show?
Well, every year we do sit down and we plan the event almost from scratch. That is something that philosophically is really important to me, that it's not a set it and forget it strategy. It's the industry is changing so much in 12 months that we have to adapt. So there are some new things that are happening at this year's show as a result of feedback that we've gotten. So we are trying to work a little bit better within the city of Las Vegas and Clark County in terms of the consumption piece. So obviously still, unfortunately, just due to regulations, we can't have actual consumption at the Las Vegas Convention Center. However, we are partnering with the Lexi Hotel, which is the first Vegas consumption-friendly hotel. So you can stay there. We have some brands that are doing some activations throughout the week there as well. Additionally, we've partnered with Thrive Dispensary. So they are going to actually have mobile ordering on our show floor and buses that are going to shuttle you to and from their Las Vegas Strip location, so that you can go and make it very accessible to get around the city for actual cannabis purposes. So really excited about some of those things that we're doing to just try to expand beyond what we've done before to kind of work within what's happening there. And hopefully, knock on wood, we'll start to see some of the first cannabis lounges opening up by the show in Vegas, but that's all dependent on regulatory approval and things. So we're still, fingers crossed, waiting on that.
What is the regulatory issue around consumption on the trade show floor?
So the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, which governs the LVCC, where the show is primarily held, they follow their local and state regulations, which unfortunately means that you cannot have consumption within the building. So, and that's true for any show, not just ours. I think everybody would love to see that get changed. I'm hoping one day it will, but it's not just a building policy. It's more of it's a bit broader than that in terms of the county and the state regulations.
Why do you start from scratch when you're planning the show every year?
Why do we do it? Because, so much is changing every year. And I think, the needs of why people are coming are changing every year. We also track things like, I'm looking at how many first-time attendees do we have. Can you imagine, being your first time walking into 30,000 people? And, it's that deer in the headlights look. And we've all had it, right? I mean, I remember my first MJBizCon and it was like, wow, this is cool. This is amazing. So, because of that, we do things like the first timers open house that we have on Wednesday. So if it's your first time, like, come meet with us. We'll walk you through everything. We'll have you meet some people in the industry that have been doing it a long time and can give you all the best tips for how to make the most of it. Because, I mean, it's a big event to do in 3 or 4 days, and so you've got to be well planned. You've got to have comfortable shoes, and make sure you've got your caffeine to get through the day.
The comfortable shoes that are broken in, and the water to offset that caffeine, because, man, if you overdo it on caffeine and then you're at the second half of that show that day, it's a hard end of the day. So you say that it changes every year. Why are people coming to the show this year?
I think this year, there's the business reason, which is, I think everyone's setting up for 24. You need to make sure that you're, on our vendor side, they're getting their orders in for next year. On the attendee side, there's a lot also around hearing what the latest regulatory updates are. For example, our executive luncheon, we have Norman Birnbaum, who is one of the top U.S. cannabis policy advisors, who will be coming to talk about rescheduling and what that would mean once knock on wood, it goes through and we have a little bit of relief there. So having that, it's the education piece, it's the doing business and getting all of your vendors and your partners set up for next year. But there's this other piece that I think, it's one of the things I look forward to most. And I know a lot of people have said this to me, that it's also something that they're really excited about. It's that just getting re-energized and, seeing the people who are in this with you and talking about what challenges you've been having throughout the year. What are you doing about it? What story, what wins have you had this year? I mean, my gosh, there's never been a better time in the industry to really focus on what wins are happening right now, to keep us going and to keep us resilient. And so having that, I guess, sense of energy and really just ending the year on a high note. I think that really matters. And I know a lot of people are coming to see their friends and to see really where the industry is and where it's going.
When it comes to ending the year on a high note, are there any education tracks or sessions in particular that also stand out that you think people should make, certain to attend?
Yeah, I want to focus a little bit on a couple newer things that we're doing. Promoting just diversity in general in the industry is really important to us. I think this is an industry, because it is, still evolving, still maturing, that I really want to see just diversity in general and the voices and the leaders in this space. So as such, a couple of the things that we've done, firstly, we've launched a Women in Leadership Forum, which will be happening on Tuesday, November 27th. This is deep dive full day on just promoting and helping women move up in the industry and kind of hopefully take over some of those entrepreneurial or executive leading seats in this space. So that's gotten great feedback so far since we've been promoting that. I'm really excited to be there, and I definitely will be in that room spearheading a lot of that. Likewise, I've partnered with Black Cannabis Expo. That's led by my good friend Christy Price. And they're going to be hosting our social equity and diversity track, which will be on Wednesday of the show. And they've brought in an amazing speaker. We're so excited about it. Martin Luther King III will be there to talk about how cannabis can be an opportunity for the BIPOC community to really, advance in this space. And so that one I'm super excited about, and they've done an amazing job with the rest of the programming for that too. So those are just a couple new things. Of course, we'll still be hosting all of our annual tracks that, like in cultivation and retail and you name it. So we'll be covering the full scope of the industry, but those are just a couple new things I'm really excited about.
Do you have any thoughts on further expansion when it comes to additional regional events or larger events throughout the year?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot internally and externally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, MJBiz has done a number of different events, and this goes back to how we kind of look at the industry and where it is and what's needed. I mean, we've done everything from investing events to international conferences in Europe and South America and Canada. So where we are right now is I'm happy to say that I think the post-pandemic recovery in terms of travel is, fully there. We're pretty much back to where we were in terms of international participation in Vegas. So I think that's a great thing. When we're looking at future, we're playing with a lot of different things. It's not as much a regional game, I think, as it is helping, how do you get, from broad terms, a buyer and a seller together, and what groups are struggling to make those connections. So we're heavily focused on our plans for 24 and thinking through that of getting everyone together. So we haven't announced anything just yet, but if you keep an ear out, there could be something coming soon. I will say that a step in that direction, we're doing a couple things in Vegas that I think will really help. We're running a retail sesh, which is bringing in retailers in the space to meet with brands and suppliers one-on-one in a way that can help deepen those connections versus sort of the sea of 30,000 people, which, as wonderful as it is, we're trying to help kind of hone that in a little bit. And then secondly, which is available to everyone, we're bringing in a new mobile app this year, which should be rolling out hopefully in the next week or so. And with that, yes, of course, it'll get you around the floor to help you find everything in your schedule. But in addition, this specific technology that we're working with does matchmaking using AI. So if you tell me what you're interested in, who you are, why you're at the show, it will be able to suggest to you, hey, you should meet with, David, and suggest a meeting time here. So it's gonna fully kind of automate some of that to help everyone out to navigate the show.
That's awesome. I mean, that would be really powerful. How did you kind of vet the app vendors? Only because having gone to trade shows in the past, I know that, it's a toss up sometimes when you download that app.
Yep. Event apps can be, hit or miss, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
There's, they all can do kind of the basic functionality, but it's really what do you need from beyond that. So we've talked to a number of different vendors that this is what they do. We've even talked to people that, can develop apps, just to do something more custom. And thankfully, we have really good partners that have been willing to work with us on just us sitting down and explaining, here's what our audience is telling us that they want when they come to the show. And we've been able to hopefully, I think we've made a big step this year in getting to serve that.
Do you know if because we're Cannabis Equipment News, do you know if the equipment footprint is going to be larger, smaller this year?
So we've switched halls again, just to, keep everybody on their toes at the convention center. We're back to North and Central halls where we typically are. And I think what you'll see is in terms of space and vendors, I'm actually really very excited to see this, that it'll be kind of roughly what you've seen in the past. I know a lot of cannabis events specifically, just given the industry economics right now, have had a little bit of a harder time throughout the year, but we're really fortunate and very grateful that a lot of the industry feels that this is, the one meeting place that they're going to go, and that's been really helpful in keeping it going. So we're pleased about that. But I think it'll be, more on par with what you've seen in the past.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely ever since coming into the industry, it's always, there are smaller shows here and there, but it's always like, what are you doing for MJBiz? What are your plans?
Yeah. I remember the first thing I heard when I first started in the space is just I was walking around, I can't remember what event it was. It wasn't ours. And, I heard hey, are you going to be in Vegas? You're going to Vegas? And I was like, oh, they're talking about MJBizCon. And and just kind of having that, like it's really a culture, and I'm really proud to be part of it. I'm, very grateful, very, I don't take it lightly of what an impact that this event and this brand can have in the industry to help people. We're just trying to do our best to, continue to serve the needs of everybody out there.
How has MJBiz evolved ever since you took over?
Well, gosh, it's been a wild ride, just in terms of the MJBiz history in general. So, for this will be our 12th MJBizCon. The first one was 400 people in Denver, and just to see in 12 years where it's evolved to, I think is really spectacular. I started in our first years in the convention center. So the other thing that I know is everyone's saying like, oh gosh, I remember the Rio days, the Rio days. And I've heard so much about that. And that it just, we moved to Vegas in 2014, I believe, and started at the hotel side, and it just kept growing and growing. And finally we just were out of space. And I think anyone who was there in 2016 knows that it was, just bursting at the seams, which is a really great problem to have. So then we moved to the convention center to be able to, have the space to include everybody that wanted to participate. And since then, our growth has been significant, which I think is a testament to this industry, new people coming in, and also seeing people that have been in it for a while really succeed. The number of people I've heard that they come the first year, like really interested in getting into the space, and so they come as an attendee, and then the next year they come back and say, okay, I have my business plan. Now I need funding. And then the year after that, they come back and say, okay, I'm ready for my booth now. And I want to start selling. I have, investors, and we're ready to go. And then, they expand from there. And I have so many stories of that, of these companies that have been with us for a number of years and have really grown with us. And that's really special to us. And the more people I can help do that, I think the better.
Because you have experience with other industries, when it comes to issues around the event, like day of the event, are, logistical issues and headaches and issues that exhibitors run into, are those unique at all in the cannabis industry, or are they kind of all the same across the board?
With any event, I think the only thing you can officially plan on is that things won't go according to plan.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely something where you've just got to be ready to roll with it on site. But thankfully, I have such a strong team that every year we have fewer and fewer little bumps along the way, and they do such a phenomenal job. If you've been there, I think for the most part it feels like really seamless, but there is a team that is, I assure you, is working around the clock to make that happen, to make it seem that way. But things always there's always something. You never know what it's going to be. In our industry specifically, the big piece is mostly on the planning side because of the regulations, and I think to a certain extent it's getting better, but there is still a bit of a stigma around events that happen in cannabis. And so in the time I've been here, it's improved dramatically. We are very fortunate that the LVCVA, they're excellent partners. They love having us there. Clark County, I actually just got back from Vegas. I was meeting with the county commissioners. They are very supportive of MJBiz. They declared it MJBizCon week in Las Vegas yet again. So they see the value that all of our audience brings to Las Vegas in terms of, they're coming, they're supporting the local cannabis industry. You're supporting the hotels there, all the workers, from Uber to taxi drivers, the restaurant workers. So that impact is definitely felt by Clark County and Las Vegas, and they're very grateful to have us. And in turn, we're happy to be there and working hand in hand with them to continue it.
Is there like an official value that's been associated to the economic impact of MJBiz?
Yeah, so we do figure out with the LVCVA what our economic impact is. So, and if you're not familiar with that, it really means obviously you're coming and you buy your ticket to go to MJBiz. But in addition to that, there is value that the city and the county places on it because you're there, you're staying in a hotel, you're giving business to the businesses in the city and in the county. So it is north of 44 million in 1 week that all of you who come to the event are helping, keep people employed, keep businesses alive. And that's a pretty significant number,
Yeah.
Just in that short time. So we are definitely one of the larger events that happen in Vegas throughout the year, which I just think is really phenomenal.
That absolutely is a phenomenal number. How many days after the event is concluded do you start over?
Well, I'm already working on 24 right now, actually.
Oh no.
I know. Yeah, it's I would say it's about a 14-month show cycle, planning cycle, where we're starting to work on things for next year. Usually things that happen first. I mean, we have the venue is done very far out because it's roughly 1 million square feet that we take over. So that part's done kind of far out, but then, it's all the things of trying to set everything up so that we can start getting the vendors in for the expo floor. We have to rebuild, register, all the technology again every year, start thinking through what we're going to do. But we definitely take, right after we come back, there's really no downtime. It just goes right into, okay, let's debrief on last year and how can we take what we learned and what we heard and start applying it to next year? And then we just start all over.
Well, hopefully you at least maybe take a day, when you land.
I'll take a day. I will take a day. I do sleep for a good solid 12 hours after the show ends, after you're riding that adrenaline all week and 2 hours of sleep a night, I try not to be out at the bars and the clubs all night for sure. I know a lot of people, those people who can do that and then get up and come to the sessions the next day. I mean, I salute you. I think it's amazing. I'm not one of those people, but afterwards, we take a day and then it's okay, start over, but you're on such a high. I always compare it to a runner's high. You're training for that marathon and it's, you're in the trenches and then you have the day of the race. And then afterwards you cross that finish line and you're just man, I want to do it again. I'm ready. And I feel that way every time I'm at MJBizCon.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time today. Do you, Do you think it's cannabis events for you for the foreseeable future? Or do you see yourself, it's one thing about this industry. It kind of gets it gets its hooks into you.
I always wonder if I were to go back to other industries, would I be bored? Because here everything's changing, every day. But I love MJBiz. This is definitely, a labor of love for me. I have an amazing team, and so not thinking in the future about anything other than MJBizCon at this point.
Well, very good. Before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to add, or anything in particular that the CEN audience should know either about yourself or MJBiz?
Oh, that's a great thing. I feel like I could be here for hours talking about MJBizCon, but all the things that we've been working on. No, I hope everyone comes to Vegas to see us. We do have a flash sale running right now because I think, we do recognize that there have been some financial challenges in the industry this year, and we've done everything in our power to make it possible for you to come to MJBizCon. So keep an eye out for that. Definitely, email us. Happy to give my email too. It's jess.tyler@mjbiz.com. So please feel free to reach out if you have any suggestions about the event or anything at all. But, please say hello if you see me in Vegas.
Well, I hope I get the chance as well, Jess.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. It was our pleasure. And before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Jess Tyler, Chief Revenue Officer of MJBiz, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.